Hello, I'm Majella and you're listening to another episode of Majella Says, the podcast where we acknowledge that life is about money. It's just not only about money. Today we're diving into why I feel like the world's biggest failure and how we can maybe try to turn that on its head and look at all of the things that have gone wrong through a different lens so that I can start to success stack and move forward with confidence and not fall into this self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm a failure. In the car today, while I was driving Henry around trying to get him to go to sleep, yes, I have a over 1.5-year-old and I'm still driving him around for his nap time. I was listening to Pumped on Property. This is one of my favorite podcasts, you guys. I absolutely love. I love their entire outlook on life. I cannot believe how weirdly we align with our outlook on life. It's crazy. The things they talk about, like Connor and I have been talking about for years, I'm just like, whoa. I didn't know there was other people out there that had such exact dreams as us. It's amazing. Anyway, love their whole vibe. Big fan. I was listening to their most recent episode, I think, where Ben, the older brother, was talking about his story. He really opened up and got very vulnerable about a difficult time in his life where his identity of being the property guy was broken because he realized that he had been doing things wrong, I guess. His words, not mine. And I was literally crying listening to this podcast because that dark period of his life that he explained was exactly to a T what Connor and I are going through right now. Our entire identity as being the entrepreneurial couple, the people who are really good at finance, the people who know how to save, the people who know how to invest. This was us. This was not only us separately, but it was us as a couple. We have just gone through this massive identity crisis. Who are we? Who are we as individuals? Who are we as a couple, if not people who run a business and are really good investors? It's been quite devastating, to say the least, to experience that and to be I don't know who I am anymore. I don't know what my purpose is anymore. How can I be so bad at something that I thought I was so good at? Oh, I feel like I'm going to cry again. With that in mind, and actually referencing another podcast that they did, they were talking about success stacking, and this is something Connor and I have always spoken about. The success spiral is what we call it, where you have one success, it can be tiny, it could be the smallest little minuscule success, but it's a success and you feel that deep in your soul, and it builds onto the next one and onto the next one, and before you know it, you've got this momentum and you've spiraled up or down. I don't know what the good way of spiraling is, but you've spiraled into this huge success, snowballs. And so they were talking about success stacking. So I think they got this from Harmozy, but talking about how each success is another building block to show you that you are who you think you are and that you are who you say you are. People talk about that a lot, that sort of stacking of evidence in terms of discipline, so that you can trust yourself. If you say, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and exercise, and you don't do it, that is another proof to yourself that you don't follow through with your actions. And so then it gets harder and harder to have discipline. Now, I am someone who is notoriously bad with discipline, I think, personally. That's something I really struggle with and I am constantly working at improving. I'm quite good at hardworking and giving up everything for someone else, for example, at a 9 to 5, but to have self-discipline, to do it for yourself, not as good, actually quite terrible. The point of me bringing this up is that I started to feel very worried and this big cloud of guilt and shame descended upon me because I was well, I look back at the last 5 years and all I see is failure. All I see is a failed business. All I see is failed investments. All I see is failed. We haven't moved forward with our savings account. So I was stacking failure. What I wanted to do was reframe that. I want to reframe it all so that I can look back at the last 5 years and go, yeah, look, things didn't work out the way we wanted them to. Doesn't mean they didn't work out. Doesn't mean they didn't work out exactly how they were supposed to in order to lead us here where we are today. So that's what we're going to go through. We're going to go through all of my failures. And like, I want to say like that these aren't just like perceived failures. These are actual hardcore failures. Hello. I am back in the chair. It's been a while, you guys. How long has it been? A month? I think it's been a month since I last recorded, and it was slightly intentional because I was like, you know what? I'm going to get out the first 5 episodes that I've recorded. I'm going to get some feedback, and then I'll go back. My computer and my phone died at once, so I haven't been able to edit any of the stuff I've recorded, and our life has moved on quite quickly. So I thought best just to get back into the studio, because otherwise we miss the real-time updates, and that's no fun. I want to give you guys the real-time updates of how life is going. The truth is, lately I have been really feeling like I'm failing in every aspect of my life. So I wanted to talk about it here with you, because I think that a lot of people go through life thinking that they're failing, especially if you're a working parent. It can really feel like you are being stretched in all different directions, pulled in all different directions, and you're not really able to give any one of those things your all. So I really wanted to sort of dive into what I've been going through in the last little while. I think it's like a bit of a repercussion from the last year. Like, I think it's, the shock waves making their way through as we're going through those like stages of grief, I guess, because what happened to us was so big, and it was like a loss. It was like experiencing a loss in a way. So we're kind of going through those stages of grief, and I think we're kind of at that acceptance stage and accepting what our life now looks like. And what comes with that is sort of looking at what our life is now, and you have to then have to face what the reality is. Both Connor and my identity has been so tightly linked to being business people, entrepreneurs, trying to start a business, and also being good with money and being finance people. Like, that is so tightly intertwined with our identity and our sense of who we are, that now that it's all crumbled around us and everything's sort of fallen down, it's like, well, who am I? Who are we? Not only who are we individually, but also like, what is our relationship founded on? Because that was something that really united us, and now we don't have that. But what it's really required us to do is look beyond the identity we had crafted for ourselves and look at who we are deep down, who we are as people, and realize that, we didn't marry each other because we were good at money. We didn't marry each other because we were both into entrepreneurship. We married each other because we have a very strong, deep connection with each other that's founded on a lot of things, not just what we do with our time. I don't know if you can tell from how I look to anyone who's watching, but I am dead tired. Like, I am so exhausted. You know what it's like? It's like when you're cycling on a machine and you've just gone really, really fast, and then you give yourself a break, and then you have to so you're tired because you've been going hard, but then you have to start the momentum again. And that first few pushes are so hard before it starts spinning again. That's how I feel. That's where I feel we're in. But there's this concept of success stacking. And Connor and I, when we first met 5 or 6 years ago, we used to talk about this a lot. We would talk about the success spiral. So you'd have one success, and then it would build and you get the momentum going. There's another way of looking at it, which is success stacking. And I got this from the podcast I've been listening to, Pumped on Property, who I think got it from Harmozy. But basically it's like you keep proving to yourself that you are who you say you are, and that you show up the way that you say you're going to show up. It's like this is success stacking, so that you have this evidence to say to yourself, look at who you are. This is who you are. You do what you say. Yeah, this concept of success stacking or the success spiral, how Connor and I used to look at it, is really useful. It's like that bike analogy in getting your momentum going again, because you look back and you're like, yeah, I'm more than just the physical success. I am all the hard work that goes into it. So when I heard these guys talking about this, I felt this like real deep down sense of shame and guilt, because they were talking about it from their own experience, which was they could look back at the last 5 years and see all of the success that they had. And so even when you're in the trenches, you can look back and go, yeah, but I did that. I had success here and here and here. And all I could do was look back and look at all of the things that had failed, like our business that had, I hate to say it, but it did. Like, we're no longer doing it. It didn't take off. We put it to rest. So we tried to start a business that failed. Our finances, our strategy that we put into place failed, not directly by any fault of our own, but it failed. There's not much that we can say that we've done that was a success. We do have our marriage. So that's one thing. I married the right person and I have a beautiful baby boy. But I don't feel like my marriage or my child is a product of my behavior. I feel like that's something that was meant to be. Like I didn't really have any power over it, I guess. So that doesn't feel like a win. I mean, obviously it's a win. It's a huge win. No, getting married to Connor, huge win, definite win. But it doesn't feel like something I worked really hard for and then achieved. I mean, even as I say that, it's kind of a weird thing to say, because your marriage, you do have to work really hard for. Every day you have to work hard on your marriage in order for it to be a successful marriage. So I guess there is that. But that kind of feels like I'm taking credit for just the fact that Connor's a great human, I think is what I'm trying to say. Or I'm taking credit for Henry being the cutest little boy in the whole world. Like I didn't have any power over that. He just came out that way. They are huge wins in my life, but they don't feel like they have anything to do with me. They feel like things that were gifted to me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. That was a really long way of saying that. But the things that I have tried, I feel like I have not been successful at. So that when I was listening to this podcast and trying to do this exercise, all I could come up with was failures. And so what I found myself very quickly falling into was failure stacking. I could just list off all of the things that I did wrong, all of the things that didn't work out, all of the mistakes that we made. And it was a huge weight on me. And I'm sure a lot of you can really relate to that feeling where you look back at the last few years and you're searching for something that you've done right and you can't find it. And that is seriously awful. That is terrifying. That is a terrifying feeling to be like, everything I've done is wrong. And so I immediately picked up on that feeling, that discomfort that was settling into my bones. And I was like, no, we're not doing that. So I decided that together, you and I would look at our failures and reframe them into success. So like reframe the last 5 years so that it feels like a success rather than a failure. Because I really want to be able to, like, a big thing for me is failing forwards. Like I've always been afraid of failure. And so I think I have to actively work at leaning into failure and failing forwards, failing upwards, seeing failure as a stepping stone to success rather than just like an individual failure. So I thought this would be a great exercise to do together. We can unpack the mistakes that I've made and reframe them into, success. How that failure can push us into a state of momentum rather than a state of shame and fear. To start, let's just list out like the key failures. Let's just put them all out on the table. Let's just get it all out there. All my flaws out for everyone to see. Failing number 1. Our savings is currently under $10,000. We lost about $60,000 in poor investment choices. We made a poor decision to cash out an options contract like 3 years ago. We cashed out, so we locked in our return price. So the amount of money that we made on our investment was locked in 3 years ago, and our money's just sitting there. not earning any interest, not doing anything. So fabulous decision that was. What else? We stopped investing in shares regularly because obviously we had no money, so we couldn't do that. We used all of our savings. Oh, this is a good one. We used our emergency fund to go on a holiday to the United States. This is before we knew everything going on, but still, this is why we have principles. This is why we have those principle decisions that we pre-make so that we don't make silly decisions like this. Lesson learnt. What else? What else have we done wrong? Oh, we didn't have an income for like 5 years. We tried to start a business that failed. Multiple businesses that failed. One actually worked. That was Connor's. Good on Connor. Oh, another bad decision. We moved to the Gold Coast right when the rent in the Gold Coast absolutely skyrocketed. Terrible decision. Timing wise. Okay, I think that's all of our failures. Most of them anyway. Now that they're all out there, I'm going to try and reframe them to be not as hurtful. Not like a stab in the heart every time I think about each one. 5 or 6 years ago, Connor and I met, and I had a real scarcity mindset. I thought that I was someone who was really good at saving money, but I felt like money was harder to make and even harder to keep. And I felt like I could never get past this like 10K savings goal, which ironically we are currently struggling to get past as well. It's so hard just to keep $10,000 in the bank currently. I don't know why this one figure 10K is so difficult to get past. Like once you're past it, it's like so easy. But for some reason, getting to $10,000 in your bank account is really freaking hard. And that is something that's so triggering to me because when I met Connor, I could not get 10K in the bank and I felt like a failure and I felt really embarrassed about it. I remember him asking me like, oh, what's your savings like? And I was like, you know, how embarrassing. I don't even have $10,000. Which like, I was a uni student. I didn't work full time. It was totally fine. Like it's not embarrassing at all. It's just that's how I felt. Anyway, I did a lot of inner work alongside Connor, with Connor leading the way on how to reshape my money psychology and my perspective of money. So I really started to see money as something that was abundant, that was, would come easily, that we would always be able to get through. It wasn't difficult to receive. I did a lot of work there. And so now I feel like in the last year, both of us now have slipped into this scarcity mindset. And I've slipped back and Connor's slipped into this, I've probably projected my mindset onto him a little bit. Because of our situation, he's been more susceptible to my projection, whereas previously he was very strong and was the leader in those feelings. It's been an interesting turn. I didn't ever think I would be back here, struggling to make 10K in the bank and struggling to feel like money came easily to us. 5 years ago, met Connor, really did the inner work in terms of our mindset, and everything felt so promising, everything was on track. I remember saying we'd just gotten married, we were living in our 2-bedroom, $400 a week, North Sydney, in that area. We were just we have just done everything right. We were everything that we have tried to do has succeeded. We're just success after success after success. And we just were people aren't going to take us seriously. We're young, we've had no dramas, everything's smooth sailing, everything's worked out, we've made great investment choices, we found these creative ways to get into property, and we felt confident and savvy, and we were great at saving. And even though we didn't have a lot of income coming in, we were that's fine, that'll come, no problem, it'll come. But life Life is never that smooth sailing. And right when you're at the most confident, it humbles you, knocks you down. It now feels like it's such a stark contrast to where we were, because it now feels like we're in that endless loop of monopoly where like you can't get past go, and all the properties around you are getting bought up, and you're like, I am never going to get out of this like poor cycle that I'm in, because the properties are all gone. Everyone's got their hotels on there now, and I'm just so far behind. And you know, unlike the game of Monopoly, you can't just walk away. You can't just be like, rage quit, I'm out. Or the game doesn't end, it keeps going. This last few months we were in this like negative loop of like, how do we get out of this? Like, it felt never ending. But then one of our friends said to us recently that he feels like we're different. There's something different about us, and that he can feel the positive energy again coming from us. And I was like, yeah, I can feel that too. And I was reflecting on that because it meant that we have overcome at least one of the mental battles that we were facing, and we have been able to get out of the hopelessness of our situation. And we have been able to find things that motivate us again, that have gotten us excited again, you know, getting back into the property game, looking at acquiring businesses. Like, this sort of stuff is what really gets us, like, lights a fire in our soul. And it feels really good to have something like that again. And I can feel the change within us. I was reflecting on that, and I think what that is this like refusal to lie down. Like, we will not just be like, okay, I guess we just have to go and live an average life. Like, we haven't given up. Like, we had a year of like running around like headless chickens, just in survival mode, not really sure what to do. But we haven't given up. We haven't laid down. And I think that is one huge success. Like, that's huge. The fact that we haven't let our failure of business scare us away. Like, Connor now knows that he wants to acquire an established business rather than start a business. And I know that I still love the idea of starting a business. So we've learnt about ourselves, each individually, and we know that this is actually something that we really want, because we had the worst possible thing happen. We put 5 years of our life into a business that didn't work, and we still want to be in business. So that's actually a very big win. That's a huge win, to know that we found our calling. And even though it wasn't that particular business, or that it wasn't that time, we still know that that's what we want to do. So I actually think that's pretty cool. Like, even as I'm saying this now, like, it feels so right and so exciting. Like, once you have a purpose in life, it's so much easier to move fluidly through all of the things that are happening and all of the things that are thrown at you. Because if you don't feel like you have a purpose, like, every little thing that happens is like, it's like you're walking into little walls constantly, like all these bits of resistance, like resistance. And you're kind of just like trudging through as if you've got weights on your legs, or your feet are getting like pulled down in the mud. But like, as soon as you have a purpose and you know what each part of your life is aiming toward, it's like you are in the wake of the water. Like, it's like everything's moving smoothly for you. I think that is a huge win, and that's a huge success that we can hold on to. And I think something that we struggled with throughout the 5 years was knowing whether we were on the right path. So we couldn't take any step forward confidently because we were like, oh, is this right? Is this right? Or should I be spending my time on this, or should I be spending my time on this other shiny thing, this other business idea, or like, should I be working a full-time job? Is this the right thing? Like, we had all of these doubts, and like, you can't underestimate how much doubt hinders your productivity. Like, I look at the successful people who were coming up, like when I was first trying to like launch my personal brand, and the ones who have made it, the ones who are still around and still posting, they have such an air of confidence. Like, they just don't doubt themselves. By Sophia Lee is one that I was looking at like quite a few years ago now, and she had only been blogging for like 2 years and was already doing really well, and like since then has exploded. Like, she has like a full interior design business now, or like something. She like flips houses. Epic, like seriously. But like the way she speaks, and like not just the way she speaks, I feel like the way she moves through life is with this profound confidence. Like, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, I don't doubt my style. I don't doubt anything about what I'm doing. And I mean, she might have doubts, but it really doesn't appear that way. Like, she seems so confident in herself. Tash Invest is another person who has this like just air of absolute confidence. I think that is so key to being successful. Alex Hormozy, he just like talks like, I'm right and I don't care if you believe me or not. He has this just like, I dare you to challenge me vibe. Like, I dare you. Go on, try, you know? And it's just this like deep inherent confidence that I think is like the underlying thread of commonality between all of these successful people. And it allows them, I believe it allows them to act swiftly. I think that in order to be successful, you need to act very quickly, pivot where you need to, but act quickly on everything that you do. Act quickly, get feedback, act quickly, like constant, one step in front of the other. So I think that's another thing that I think that I've learnt. So it's another like little notch on my belt of like understanding. I think going back to full-time work for both of us, whilst felt like giving up on our business, succumbing to the norm, and giving up on like entrepreneurship generally, like it felt like we were like throwing in the towel, like, oh well, back to just like that. We tried our little dream and it didn't work. It felt like that at the time, but now I see that it has such a larger purpose. What it will allow us to do in terms of getting into the property market, networking, building relationships so that we can successfully move through business. It's super powerful, and I wish we had done it sooner, but we can't always see how well we have timed our life. We can't always see it. We don't know what's around the corner or what we avoided, or everything becomes clear in time. And while it might not be clear right now, it's like, just got to trust in the timing of life, really. So that's another thing. I think like transitioning into full-time work, having that servicing power behind us, it made us get really clear on property and knowing that that's the strategy we want to take towards our wealth building. So there's a few things there. One, we understand ourselves so much more. We understand what it takes to succeed in business, and we have taken steps to do that. So we are taking steps actively, having a stable income behind us, like realizing that you need a stable income. You need to take risks from a place of stability. So we have that stability in place now. We're using our jobs to like learn about business and like learn off someone else's dime, with again, like not taking that risk ourselves, and network and gain those connections. On the no savings, I think this is tightly linked to no income, because how can you save? You can't save your way out of no income. Like, well, I don't know what we thought was going to happen. Our expenses are about $2,500 a fortnight, like $2,500 a fortnight. So we should really be able to have more than $10,000 saved, because while we're paying like utilities and groceries and stuff, we're not paying rent. So there should really be like scope for savings. But because we didn't have a lot of hope, we thought we were still saving well, but it just wasn't getting past that 10K mark. And I think we have successfully gotten that hope back into the equation, which really helps your money mindset. Like, it really does help you to be able to hold on to your money and feel like money will come to you. The fourth thing that I would say is really powerful is we have survived like soap opera worthy level drama. Like, what we went through in the last year could literally be a movie script, and we've gotten through it. That is some huge strength and resilience building, and it demonstrates to us that we can quite literally get through anything, and we will get through anything, and life can throw us curveballs and we can navigate them. I mean, it's not the hardest thing that someone could go through, what we went through, but it's pretty close, I would say. It's the hardest thing we've ever gone through. But yeah, like we did that. We got through that. So if you are in the middle of going through something really hard, just remember you're going to feel like a freaking epic superhuman once you get through it. So the wounds are still there. The wounds will always be there. The pain will always be there. But you realize that you are so much stronger than what you ever thought. I also think that this like dark period is almost like a necessary challenge that you have to get through in order to like reach your best self. So whilst it's almost like, you know, that dark forest level in a game that you just like have to get through in order to like come out to the like beautiful, I don't know, rainforest waterfall with the rainbows and all the gold, the pots of gold. I don't know what games I'm playing, but when I was talking about like going through the woods, like you're in the trenches, you're in that dark, lonely period. I feel like we're currently going through this dark, lonely period. What happens here is you kind of are shedding. You're shedding who you were and all of the unnecessary bits. Like I feel like because we've gone through so much shit in the last year, we are shedding all of the things that don't matter anymore, and anything that's not going to lead us directly to our North Star, to our dream life, we're getting rid of. And whether that's people, things, it's not even a conscious decision. Things are just falling away because they do not serve where we're headed in life. And it's so important to have people around you who are aligned with your beliefs and your goals, because we all push each other up together. Like, we don't have to be exactly the same. We don't have to have exactly the same views on life. But, you know, if you're like all tides, all ships raise tides, rising tides. Oh my God. Rising tides raise all ships. And so, you know, that you get that momentum together, you move up together. Like, our time is so valuable now that we are pouring it into people and things that are literally going to move with us forever. Yes, that is a huge win. That is a huge, I think when you're a bit younger maybe, or just where we were at that stage of our life, like so much more people pleasing and also just uncertainty about what's what and who to put time into and where to put time. So that is a huge win as well. I think if we go back to that like failing forward and failing upwards sort of mentality, like it's important to remember that like a lot of entrepreneurs have failed businesses and they have a lot of failed attempts at business. It's just that we only ever really hear about the successes. And so it doesn't mean that we're not going to be successful. It just means that, you know, we're learning and adapting and changing. Not everyone is an immediate overnight success, or like the first business that they start is successful. I think our failure in business doesn't mean that we can't be entrepreneurs. I think if I just stop seeing the business failure as like we failed, it's just like we learnt what didn't work. We learnt what not to do. We learnt that we needed to move more quickly and speak to more people and ask for things. We were so afraid of asking people for things because we were afraid they were going to say no. Like, who cares? They say no, so what? There's so many lessons that we learn. And just because one business failed doesn't mean the next one's going to. Or maybe it will. Maybe it will, and we'll just try something else. And we'll keep going. The most important thing is that we know that that's exactly what we want to be doing now. So if you feel like you are failing currently, if you feel like the last few years you haven't made any progress, or you're back where you started, if you've tried a business and it hasn't worked out, if you've tried to invest in property and it hasn't worked out, just know that there are a lot more people out there that have failed than you know. And there are a lot of ways that you can look at that experience, because that's what it is. It's experience now. You have experience in those things, and you have experience in what not to do. It's not as condemning as you might think. Like, you are not condemned to be a failure. Just because you made a mistake or things didn't work out the way that you wanted them to, it doesn't mean that you are now forever a failure who can't invest in property or can't build a business. It just means that you try again. In terms of going away to the United States and using our emergency fund to do that, 2 lessons learnt there. 1, you don't rely on forecast date for your return on investment. Don't rely on that ever. You don't rely on a date until the money is in your account. Don't make any big decisions about when you anticipate money to be coming. Wait until that money is in your account and then make the decision. If you haven't watched my previous episodes, you might not know. We decided, I was pregnant. Connor had just stopped his business, so he didn't have an income. And we decided to go on a month-long honeymoon to the United States because it was the last opportunity for us to go overseas without a baby. And we were like, yeah, okay, we're just going to do it. We just bit the bullet. We were going to do it. We made that decision knowing it was a silly decision and knowing that it went against our principles, our core principle of you do not spend your emergency fund unless it's on an emergency, and you save up for your holidays. So we did that knowingly, but we made that decision because we thought we were going to get 2 different payouts from 2 different investments once we got home. So we'd been given forecasted dates that money would arrive, and we were like, it will be sweet. Like, there'll be a month or 2 where we don't have any money. Then right before the baby's due, an influx of about 100K is coming in. Will be totally sweet. No big deal. We'll spend 10K on a holiday. We were like, it's fine. We can do this because we're going to have 100K come in. Long story short, the money didn't come. We still have never received that money. It is a very hard way to learn the lesson that you do not rely on a forecasted date that you're going to receive money. You just don't. You wait until it's in your account. The second lesson we learned from that is to 1000% stick to your principles. They are core principles for a reason. Do not let your emotions and your silly little girl math, which is a silly term because Connor did it too, but you don't let that self-justification step in. You have your principles for a reason. Stick to them. Trust your gut. Trust your gut. That's another big one. Trust your gut with people. I can't tell you how many times with those 2 investments I had a gut feeling and I ignored it. I ignored it from the very beginning. Trust your gut. Please, if anyone is out there and they are on the cusp of making a decision, trust your gut. That's all I'm going to say on it. Yeah. Okay, the next one. What were some of the other big failures? Moving to the Gold Coast. This is one that... this is a good one. I'm glad I just thought of this. I'm going to put moving to the Gold Coast under the umbrella of living a lifestyle before you're ready. So what I mean by that is when we were running our business and location independent. So we were working online. We didn't need to be in any particular state. We fell into the trap of living like we had a successful business before we did. Whilst we were working crazy hours, like honestly, I go back and look at some of the videos that we made and we were working nonstop, but we very frequently took time off to go and visit family. We very frequently took time off in the middle of the week, again, for family stuff. We would drop everything for family things. That is awesome. I love that. That's a core value for us. But what I think we forgot is that we were preparing ourselves for our own family. And there is that age-old saying, put your own oxygen mask on first. Because imagine if we had really, and I mean really, properly, 100% put our heads down and just like went all in while we had no children, while we had low rent. If we had really properly gone all in, just like worked our butts off, potentially, I'm not saying it definitely would have happened, but potentially our business would have been epic. And imagine where we would be now. Imagine the time, the resources, the money we could pour into our families and helping them. So we tried to live that before we were ready, before we were able. We actually weren't able to give up that much time then. We weren't able because we didn't have an income. And that's okay. It's okay to say, I would love to travel to see you, family, but I can't right now because I don't have an income and I have to work. I have to work for this. This is the life and the path we have chosen, and we have to stick to it. We have to stick to what we've chosen. That's okay. I think we felt like it wasn't okay and that family always came first. And it does, but you have to remember that when you're newly married, you don't have children yet, but you're preparing your life for when you do have children. Your family has to come first, and then you can start pouring into everyone else's. It's a balancing act, of course. Of course, give your time and be generous. But what we were doing is that, there's a difference between, being generous and, cutting yourself open and letting yourself have nothing for yourself. There's a line between being generous and just giving away everything that you have. And that's what we were doing. Obviously not. We weren't physically giving away everything that we had, but we gave all of our time. Something that we learnt, this goes along with moving to the Gold Coast. So when we realized that rents were really high, we probably should have reevaluated and gone, can we actually do this? We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to live a life that we weren't ready for yet. We didn't know that the Gold Coast wasn't going to work out and that we'd have to move back for our jobs and things like that. It's really easy to look back with hindsight, but yeah, we did fall into this trap of living this flexible, free lifestyle and allowing other people to demand where we put our time. If we want to be successful entrepreneurs, we don't want to just be the normal 9-to-5 people. And it's really easy to say, oh no, I can't attend X event because I have a shift at work. Everyone goes, yeah, cool, no problem. But if you say, oh no, I can't attend X event because I'm working on my own business, people go, well, you can do that at any time. You can do that whenever you want. That's not really something. That's not really work. You're not earning any money from it. So that's not really work. If you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to have your own thing, if you want to be successful at what you do, you have to shut out the noise. You have to. We learnt this the hard way. You have to say no, firm no. These are my boundaries. I want to do this. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to do my business so that in 5, 10 years, maybe 15, I can give you all of the time in the world and not feel like I'm drowning, underneath the surface. Another lesson learnt, boundaries, people. But also just commit. I think that's a big one as well. Commit. I feel like I'm just telling myself off at this point. I'm supposed to be finding this success in it all. But lessons learned are successes. So let's go with that. And I think now I really can commit. I think I've practiced and I've felt what it feels like, so I can identify when my boundaries are being pushed. I've had the practice now, and I can identify when it's time to say no. So that's good. That's a good thing. I think most people have failed in some way, and we just don't hear about it all of the time. So it can feel quite isolating to be going through this, like, oh, I've failed, I've done the wrong thing. Or like you can really internalize it and get a lot of guilt from that. Like you can feel really shameful when you feel like you failed at something. But I think if you can chat about it with someone, like chat through whatever experience it was, and really like lean on them to help you see the things that you learned from it. Whether that's a friend, a psychologist, you can voice note me. You can voice note me any of your failures, and I will voice note back, and we can like work out how to reframe that into something more positive, into an actual success. It's much easier to see someone else's failure as a success than your own. Thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting through it with me. I'm feeling a lot better about the last 5 years recently. I'll go into this in one of the other episodes, but we have our hope has been restored, and that is game changing. It is really game changing. So we'll talk about that next time. Tonight, Connor and I are going to be back here in this podcast studio, and we're going to give you an update of where we're at. Some pretty exciting things have been happening, and we're really excited to share, because we're just feeling so much happier. Like the wheels are in motion. So yeah, we will chat to you again tonight. Literally tonight. I'll be back here. So see you then.